Been a part of a band called Hard Times originally, about 1970, 75, 78, through that era maybe. Then it was Trade Winds, country rock band. Played a little country rock for a while. And I played, in various classic rock bands, Legacy, Night Castle was another country rock band. I played in Flashpoint. Was one of the original members of the Flashpoint band that still plays around in this area. So, and Rick and Jimmy band, Smoke and Mirrors. And Rick and I are still doing the jams together, so we're still playing a lot of music together. Winkle band stemmed from acoustic jams at Archie's. Doug Butterman and I played a lot for about the past year, at least once or twice a week together at Archie's. And Rick and I have been together for about 11 years now in a lot of different projects and different bands. So Doug and Rick and I got together and decided to try to get us a Friday night gig somewhere. And Doug's the one that got us hooked up with the wagon wheel. Wild Band's a band that also come from the jam sessions, and in the past, I'd say last year and a half, 2 years, I've been started to open jam at Mulligan's on Wednesdays, and Mulligan's closed, and then we moved to Tambrosini's on Wednesdays. We also do an open jam on Thursday at Simmerl's, and between all the jam sessions, Ricky Byer and I connected, and he hooked me up with Carl Wallace. And of course, Aaron Kyle and I played in a band years ago, a couple different ones. We played in Legacy together. He also played in the Trade Winds band with me. And I know I'm going to leave a few bands out. I've been in so many different ones, but I've been playing for the last 37 years, so it's kind of hard to leave one or two bands out. A lot of my bands have stemmed from jam sessions. It's a good way to meet other musicians. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking for certain players, you can hear what they sound like before you even, know if you want to invite them in on your, band or not. You get a chance to hear them first, or a chance to jam with them. Like I say, last 3 or 4 bands I've been in, probably even Flashpoint, come from a jam session that we had in Brazil. So, a lot of good bands, met a lot of good people. I've played with a lot of people that I would have never had the chance to play with before. Well, that one's coming up. It's going to be kind of like all the rest of them, but one difference is we're going to be able to have some other underage, like I'm in high school, whatever, kids come in, and they'll also have the opportunity to play with other musicians, whereas I don't know how many opportunities there are for that age group, so we're hoping to open up some doors that way for them. Oh, sure. Aaron Kyle, he was only 16 years old when we put him in the Trade Winds band. We had him at Terrytown Inn. He come in with these parents. Parents come in and sat in the front row, of course, And Brian Butts is another one. Brian Butts is another young drummer that I met both of them years ago through the Conservatory of Music. And they were young students of band lobbies, and that's how we met. I would think so. There's just not much for, the younger kids. I know a few years back, a friend of mine, Mark Kenton, was telling me about, his boy playing at a place near North High School. And I never went to that, venue, but I heard that they had, a lot of the younger, high school bands that participated and played there all the time. And I don't think it exists anymore, so. A lot of those places, sometimes have a hard time, I guess, getting support. had friends of mine, once I had a friend come back from Florida and said, oh, you ought to hear them bands down there. They're way better than our bands. And that just kind of bothered me. So then when I went to Florida myself, I went around and I found it to be the opposite. Or else they were no better or no worse. The level of musicianship is real high in this area. There's been a lot of good musicians come out of Terre Haute and Brazil and the surrounding areas. I'm not real sure, tell you the truth, I'm not real sure about that. I know that a lot of times I learned from, players like Brian Jackson, Bubby Jackson, Rocky Jackson, Mark Allman, a lot of them older musicians, they took me under their wing when I was a young kid, and there wasn't, a whole lot to do back then, so yeah, I took up guitar and I enjoyed it, but there's just a really lot of good musicians in this area. I hope so. I hope I can, somebody can learn something from me. I learn something from people every day, especially at the jams, I can learn from a young kid, and I hope a young kid can learn from an old dog like me. Well, that's to be expected. I'm nervous right now. Anytime you point a camera at me, I'm, going to be a little nervous, but yeah, it's to be expected. It's something that, you really have to want to do, and I think you can overlook it if you want to, if you want something bad enough, you'll overlook all the obstacles and, get over that being embarrassed or whatever, Everybody makes mistakes, so the first thing you have to learn as a musician is don't let the mistakes eat you up. Just keep going, Most people aren't even going to hear it, and if they do, they're going to be forgiving as long as you pick the ball up and keep the song going. A lot of times you get a lot of good combinations up there, A lot of, I've been real impressed. I've been real lucky enough to sit out in the audience a few times even and hear other musicians that got together to jam, say Doug, Rick, and, the Jackson Boys. The Jackson Boys come out to the jam sessions, and that's Eric and Trevor. And they come out to the jam sessions, and, I tell you what, when they get up to play, along with Doug and Rick and other people, you can get some really good songs coming off the stage. What I would say is, just make sure you get halfway decent equipment. Not that that's going to make you play any better, but practice. Practice, practice. That's the main thing, I've seen players that come natural and just don't need as much practice, but myself, I've always had to work at it. It didn't come natural to me. I still don't consider myself all that great of a musician. I hope I hope I sound halfway decent when I play out, but I hear a lot of other musicians, and you try to grade yourself up with everybody else maybe, and you realize that there's a lot of good musicians in this town.